A decadent and fluffy gluten-free chocolate orange cake that is topped off with an easy to make indulgent chocolate ganache. It's perfect for sharing with others or just to enjoy yourself. If you love the combination of chocolate and orange, you will absolutely adore this cake. There's no fancy ingredients, your house is going to smell amazing, and I wanted to actually utilize citrus since it's citrus season here in Tasmania and use oranges in different ways. Now for this recipe we're actually going to use a whole orange, which is a little bit different from just zesting and adding the juice, so that there's absolutely no waste. Now let's get cooking. So I've just preheated the oven to 180 degrees, which is about 350 Fahrenheit, and we're going to cook the orange first. So we need to just immerse it in water and then cook it on the stove for about 15 minutes. Now the 15-minute timer should start once the water has come to a boil. The orange doesn't need to be completely covered though for it to cook properly. It's ready when you can pierce it and there's not too much resistance. Slice it up into chunks and then remove any seeds or secondary fruit so that the cake isn't bitter. Do this carefully so you don't burn yourself, then leave it aside to cool. In the meantime, bring a cup of plant-based milk up to a gentle simmer. So the reason we're actually going to warm up the milk is so when I pour it over the cornmeal, it helps to thicken it up, which helps to give the cake some structure. To a large bowl, add a cup of maize meal and pour the warm milk over it and stir it in straight away so that it thickens. Once it's well combined, add in a cup of sugar and mix it to combine. The warmth of the milk will melt the sugar and make it a bit more liquid. Then add in half a cup of oil and mix really well to incorporate. Make sure it's fully combined before adding the rest of the ingredients. You may need to whisk this for a couple of minutes. To avoid any lumps, sift in a third cup of cocoa powder, a cup of almond flour, 3 teaspoons of baking powder and half a teaspoon of salt, then stir to combine. The great thing about gluten-free baking is that you don't have to worry about overmixing. Now we need to add the cooked and cooled orange to a small food processor and blend for around 15 to 20 seconds, scraping down the sides as you go. So I've got a little tip for you when it comes to apple puree. Now I can't actually personally get it in a lot of the supermarkets here locally, and so I had an idea. Babies eat puree, so why don't I go and check in the baby aisle? And then I found just a little jar of apple puree, which is essentially applesauce, and I buy those instead of the bigger ones if I can find them, because I find that I don't use it up in time and then it goes moldy. So this is also a really great tip to save some money and to save some resources as well. Now add in a quarter cup of applesauce and blend again until you have an orange puree. You will still have some smaller chunks of orange, but that's completely fine. It adds a lovely texture to the cake. Now all we have to do is pour it into the bowl and mix it until combined. Now that's it, your cake batter is done. Now pour it into a 9-inch lined cake tin. I like to also grease the sides just in case. Now the batter does look a little bit chunky, but don't worry, it's actually going to be a beautifully fluffy cake. Before we put it into the oven, just give it a little wobble so that it sets at the top, and then we'll bake it for about 50 minutes to 1 hour or until a skewer comes out clean. Let it cool completely before removing it from the cake tin. Now that the cake has cooled, we're just going to make a 2-ingredient chocolate glaze to go on top. This step is actually completely optional. If you're using block chocolate like I am, and if you have a sweet tooth like I do, use about 55% cocoa, but if you want it less sweet and a bit more indulgent, you can go for something about 70 to 85% cocoa instead. So add 120 grams of chocolate to a double boiler and stir it as it melts. Remove it then from the heat once it's completely melted and add in half a cup of coconut cream and whisk it until it's completely combined and there's no lumps. Let it cool for about 10 minutes in the fridge so that it thickens and becomes a little easier to spread. If you'd like to decorate your cake with orange slices and/or zest, you can prepare that in the meantime. Spread the chocolate ganache over the top of the cake, creating whatever pattern you like. I often play around with it just a little bit too long. Now you can top it up with the orange slices and the orange zest. And now it's ready to enjoy. This cake is great to share with family and friends without compromising on any flavour or texture. It's fluffy and decadent, and I'm sure it won't last long. As always, find the recipe linked in the description for the full write-up. Happy baking!